But when you see a really good movie actor, you can see the reaction on his face to what the other man is saying.
For more than half a century, Michael Caine has been the one fixed point in a changing industry. No desperate reinventions, no staged meltdowns for headlines, just that unmistakable voice, the unshakable gaze, and a style built on control instead of chaos.
So you have to behave, you mustn't act. You have to react, and you have to listen.
While others shouted for attention, he quietly proved that restraint could be lethal on screen. But behind that calm is a private map, films he's praised, returned to, or mirrored so clearly that they've become code keys to his entire career.
About money. It's about whether it's worth getting up in the morning to do. It's with whom, what it is, where it is, why it is, and I would decide.
These aren't polite top 10 classics. These are the 6 films that rewired how Michael Caine sees acting, power, and survival. And once you understand what he took from them, you won't watch him, or these movies, the same way again. Number 1. On the Waterfront. The film that detonated his understanding of acting wasn't one he starred in, it was one he studied. On the Waterfront hit him like a warning shot. Marlon Brando wasn't neat, he wasn't proper. He was messy, slurred, wounded, alive. It felt like the camera had stumbled into a private breakdown and never called cut. For Caine, raised in an era that worshipped technical correctness, this was a shock. Brando broke the rules and made everything before him look like acting. That was the point. The performance showed Caine that truth destroys polish every time. If you're thinking about how you look, you've already lost. From that moment, Caine started chasing something raw. You can feel Brando's ghost in Alfie, where charm hides rot under the surface, in his gangland roles, where cruelty comes without theatrical speeches, in his quieter later work, where he lets age and fatigue sit plainly on his face instead of pretending they're not there. He saw that the job wasn't to appear heroic or elegant, it was to appear human, even when that humanity was ugly. And while he admired many later performances, including Al Pacino's slow burn power in The Godfather, they slotted into this same revelation. The camera is merciless, and it rewards only those who stop faking. On the Waterfront didn't just impress Michael Caine, it exposed a standard he'd spend the rest of his life trying to honor, earning its place among the 6 films that define him. Number 2. Lawrence of Arabia. Before he was a star, Caine sat in a dark cinema and watched the desert swallow the screen. Lawrence of Arabia didn't just impress him, it rearranged the ceiling on what acting could be. Peter O'Toole barely moves, rarely raises his voice, yet commands every frame like gravity in human form. No theatrics, no begging for attention, just intent. For Caine, that was a revelation. He saw that charisma isn't volume, it's control. It lives in the pause before a choice. The look held a second too long, the decision not to flinch. That film gave him permission to underplay, to trust that if you mean it, the camera will come to you. When you watch him later in the Ipcress File, Get Carter, or as the calm center of Nolan's worlds, you're seeing the desert lesson in motion. He doesn't chase the scene, he lets the scene orbit him. O'Toole showed him that the loudest presence in the room can be the one that never raises its voice, and Caine never forgot it. Number 3. Zulu. Zulu wasn't just another war movie. It was the moment Michael Caine stopped being the cockney who'll never be a gentleman and became a leading man. Cast as an upper-class officer, he walked onto set certain he'd be fired. The accent, the class gap, the expectations, none of it was on his side. So he did something terrifyingly simple. He stood still, back straight, hands clasped, voice controlled. He let posture and silence do what insecurity wouldn't. What started as self-defense became one of his most important tools. Authority, he realized, can be worn like a uniform until it becomes real. That performance flipped the industry's perception of him. Overnight, he wasn't just a working-class outsider. He was someone who could command a frame, and he never forgot the lesson. In role after role, from ruthless gangsters to precise professionals, he used composure as a weapon. Where another actor might shout, he lowers his tone. Where someone else swings, he looks. Zulu doesn't just sit among his 6 favorite movies, it explains them. It's the battlefield where those lessons from the films he loved turned into the Michael Caine the world would never forget. Number 4. Casablanca. When Caine talks about Casablanca, he doesn't just talk about romance. He talks about rhythm, about pauses, about the courage of not spelling everything out. Watching Bogart, he saw a man tearing himself apart from the inside while the exterior never fully cracks. It's longing delivered through control, heartbreak disguised as sarcasm. That became the spine of Caine's emotional style. Films like Casablanca taught him to play the truth underneath the line instead of hammering it on top. Feel deeply, show selectively, trust the audience to hear the echo. You see that inheritance in Educating Rita, where affection and frustration twist under every dry remark. In The Cider House Rules, where compassion sits in his eyes before it ever reaches his voice. Like Bogart, he lets regret flicker, then locks it away. The impact hits harder because he doesn't force it. Casablanca proved to him that the most devastating choice can be delivered quietly, that sometimes the line that breaks your heart is the one said with a steady voice, and that philosophy would carry him from romantic cynics to aging mentors, all cut from the same cloth of disciplined feeling. Number 5. The Third Man. If Lawrence of Arabia taught him scale, The Third Man taught him suspicion. Vienna's broken streets, tilted angles and shadows full of half-truths showed Caine a world where charm and danger share the same smile. Heroes aren't clean, villains aren't simple, everyone is negotiating with their own reflection. What gripped him was how the film refuses moral simplicity. Orson Welles' Harry Lime is magnetic and monstrous at the same time. That duality unlocked something vital for Caine. You don't play good or bad. You play need, fear, hunger. You let the audience decide the rest. The film's language of suggestion sank deep into his craft. It taught him that what you don't show, don't explain, don't overact, that's where tension lives. Look at his cold precision in Get Carter, or his weary conscience in The Quiet American. There's always a question mark hanging over him. He trusted the camera to love ambiguity as much as he did. The Third Man whispered a rule he'd keep for life. Mystery isn't created by hiding information, it's created by letting doubt breathe. Number 6. The Quiet American. Then there's The Quiet American, the most personal of his 6. Playing Thomas Fowler, an aging correspondent in Saigon, Caine stepped into a man drowning in moral compromise, romantic fear, and the slow panic of becoming obsolete. This wasn't youthful swagger or stylish villainy. This was a reckoning. He fought hard for that film, for its release, for its uncomfortable politics, for a story that didn't flatter anyone. That battle, by his own admission, nearly exhausted him. But on screen, all those years of lessons collided. The restraint of Casablanca, the ambiguity of The Third Man, the quiet authority of Lawrence of Arabia, the toughness he forged through roles like Zulu, the raw honesty he'd worshipped in On the Waterfront. He didn't decorate Fowler. He let him sag, let him hesitate, let him cling to love while sensing he'd already lost control of everything else. It felt less like Michael Caine acting and more like Michael Caine allowing the camera to see what time does to a man. That's why The Quiet American stands as the emotional anchor of his 6 favorites. It's not just a film he loves, it's the proof that he used what he learned. A career spent studying silence, doubt, and dignity finally distilled into one performance where there's nowhere to hide. Line these 6 films up and a pattern appears. Epics that taught him stillness, thrillers that taught him suspicion, romances that taught him restraint, performances that taught him to surrender to truth, and one late career story that forced him to cash in everything he'd learned. Michael Caine's 6 favorite films aren't decoration, they're coordinates. Together they explain why he never had to shout to be unforgettable. Because in his world, greatness isn't how loudly a story is told, it's how long it echoes after the credits fade. Which one of these films hits you hardest now that you've seen them through his eyes? Tell me below. And if you want more unscripted maps to how legends are really built, you know where to find the next story.